Success Express, your business, career, and financial radio magazine. Hosted by Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Give me your ticket, everybody. Welcome to Big Blend Radio Success Express Show, our business career show. We're your hosts, Nancy and Lisa, the mother-daughter travel team and publishers of Big Blend Magazines. You can check it all out at BigBlendMagazines.com. And today, you know what? We're going to talk about leadership, effective leadership, the difference between a leader and a boss. Which one are you? So Sarah-Elliston is back on the show today. Sarah has got a brand new article all about leadership up on blendradioandtv.com. You can read it now. And she talks about relationships and really it gets down to that core part of being a leader and making things fun as well. Sarah is a author. And you've heard her on her show before. But anyway, she is the author of Lessons from a Difficult Person, How to Deal with People Like Us. And she's a faculty member of the Glasser Institute for Choice Theory. And she's a workshop leader and trainer certified in values realization and parent effectiveness training. And you can read her articles on blendradioandtv.com. And also go to her website, Sarah-Elliston.com. Go to Amazon, go get her book. It's a good time to read her book because we're all stuck inside still with each other going, but you still got to be a leader even if your team is outside. But welcome back, Sarah. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks. Thanks for inviting me.
It's good to have you back on the show. Are you a leader? The difference between a boss and a leader, I think that's really interesting because a lot of times you think of a leader and you automatically think that's what a leader is the boss. The boss man.
Well, yeah. When I was working in corporate America, they were talking about managers versus bosses, and then they evolved into this whole concept of leadership as being different from managing and bossing. Managing being that you know what everybody's doing and you've got your finger in every pie, but a boss is someone that isn't just knowledgeable about what's going on and has all the responsibility, but usually a boss is someone who's also rules by fear, keeping the employees afraid that if they act in any way other than he tells them, how he or she tells them to, that they'll be fired or, their pay will be docked. Or there's just always an element of tension and discomfort. And that's not what a leader does. So that's more of what I would call a boss, because using rewards and punishment, praise. Often it's accompanied by making fun of people that don't quite measure up for whatever reason. So you get that kind of a environment, and it's not any fun and not very successful. But a lot of times when someone's told they're the boss, that's what they think they're supposed to do, is tell everybody what to do and quote, yell at them if they don't do it right. And
I think that's intimidation, and I think when when you intimidate, that is a good sign of you are the one who's scared.
Totally, yes.
Yeah.
That's what's going on. But what we're looking for is how can we be less fearful and more of a leader in the sense, a leader is someone who invites people to work with them, and in order to do that, a leader has to build relationships with the people that work with him or for him or her. So it's all about relationships, really. And I think in this radio program, I have listed the the tenets of good relationships at least 1 million times.
Well, but it seems also that it's about creating a teamwork, where people, if they're enjoying their work environment, even if we're all socially distant and still working at home, depending on who, what, and where these days, you still have to have that team environment. I know people that just like, I'm still going to work because I miss it, or you miss your coworkers and you get excited, and that's when you can overcome hurdles and obstacles and and maybe go through the different changes that can happen in business, is having a leader that's like not having to lead with an iron fist. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But,
exactly.
And is also open, right? A leader is also open to ideas, I think, too.
Yes.
Oh, for sure.
A leader is open to ideas. A leader is vulnerable to the extent that they acknowledge if they make a mistake. And actually, a really good leader is the one that says, "Oh, we didn't do that quite the way we wanted to. It didn't work out. I wish I had, caught it. I wish." So a really good leader takes responsibility for whatever happens, the positives or the negatives.
Yeah, take ownership. Of everything, and even of the team. It's interesting because you used Maria Montessori as an example of a good leader in the classroom. So leaders is not always just in a corporate environment. It could be a leader in the Boy Scouts, or it could be the leader in the Girl Scouts and the Brownies, or it could be the leader of the pack.
Well, what's interesting is that leaders often emerge in groups like church groups or other volunteer groups. I was thinking, I now live in a condominium, and so in our condo association, I find it fascinating that some people will serve on the board because they care about dollars and cents and they want to make sure everybody's towing the line. But in the larger group, someone else is often the leader. Even if that person isn't on the board, someone else is the one that knows everybody's name and why they're there and what their grandchildren are doing. And so when decisions are being discussed and people are standing around 6 feet apart, talking about different decisions, that person, in this case, it's a woman, and what she does, she's so relationship-y, you know what I mean? She's just very friendly, very accommodating, always wanting to help. What could she do? She's got an active social life and grandchildren of her own in Chicago, so she isn't always here. But I see the board kind of not quite deferring to her, but they run decisions by her before they make them. So leadership can emerge in a group, whether the person is the elected leader or the chosen, the person isn't the manager of the team, but as the team works together, often someone will show leadership because of the nature of their relationships.
Right. There's someone that just kind of makes you like, you look up to them because, they've shown integrity and I think a leader, there's that importance of delegating work. You don't take it all on yourself, so there's delegation. Yeah. But you also, I think, as a leader, have to get down, man. You can't always. You got to get down. I'm just gonna say, you got to.
They have to get their hands dirty. Yes, they don't.
Yeah, once in a while.
Sit in the corner office or whatever.
Yeah, whatever it is.
I think that's one of the things that I've noticed on our condo board, for example, is that there's some people that are on the board not because they care about power, but they want to make darn sure that every dollar is spent correctly and every law is, everybody's. But I have, suddenly I lived here for 10 years before I discovered one of my windows was supposed to be a little bit different than it is.
Well, all right.
It has a plastic inset, to pretend panes. They look like panes, but they're just a plastic inset. And it wasn't there when I moved in, so it didn't occur. And then I got a letter from the board saying, "You're not in compliance." I'm like, okay. Anyway, I wanted to say I've done this probably in every interview we've ever done, any radio show we've done, but I always like to say these relationship habits that connect us to other people. And I think you'll find a good leader is someone that practices all of these. And so I just want to mention them. Mm-hmm. They're supporting, encouraging, listening, accepting, trusting, respecting, and negotiating differences. So a leader has a conversation, not a confrontation. Mm-hmm. And those relationship habits come from choice theory, which was discovered by Dr. William Glasser. I've also talked about that a lot of times on the radio shows. But I just like to mention it because we don't always think of those particular elements. Listening is a leader has to be a good listener and be accepting and respecting. So part of what the last 4 weeks of peaceful demonstrations has all been about, respecting differences.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing. As a leader, you have to remember not everyone's going to be like you, 100%. Especially in a work environment, everyone's coming in from a different walk of life. And you think now how companies are, whether everybody's working at home or, everyone's going to come from a different place, and there is a respect that has to happen. There's a respect on so many levels. There's a respect to your clients. There's a respect to your coworkers. There's a respect to even the independent contractors. That's the one thing too. When you say, you're in an office area and you have someone come in to do the computers and they're an independent contractor, and a leader has to still have respect for those people, because then you're not going to have a good relationship. And next thing you know, your price is going to go up or something. So I think there's a leader in those relationships.
It's like being a substitute teacher. They get a lot of independent contractors get taken for granted and feel left out, and a good leader will include them, of course. One of the things, one of the reasons I mentioned Maria Montessori is because she really believed that all children want to learn, which, of course, she was working in 1901, and now it's 100-some years later, people have actually acknowledged that, yes, children really do want to learn, and they want to learn from the get-go. You don't want to wait till they're 5 years old to start teaching them things like, how clocks work or what their name is and where they come from, all these things that we do with young children. And she felt that if children felt accepted and they were praised for their work, and when the work that they were to do was explained to them simply and clearly, and then they were given a chance to do it as often as they want, which we now know is called experiential learning, that they would, and that they weren't going to be criticized, that they would learn well. And she was working with children originally who were considered special needs, and the people that assigned her to this class didn't figure she'd get anywhere with them. And of course, she did wonderfully with them, and it's grown into an entire approach to education. But that's being a leader in that aspect of it, of not criticizing, giving people plenty of chances to do it until they get it right, basically, or to keep doing it so it becomes part of their muscle memory, if that's what it is. Accepting of all the children there and acknowledging them, especially when they're children. For example, my son went to Montessori school from the age of 3 to the age of 12. And when he got to the age about, I guess it was 6 or 5 or 6, when he was supposed to be learning to read, he just wasn't interested. He was really good at a lot of other things like sharpening pencils and chopping up the carrots for lunch and washing the dishes after lunch. He was really, really good at other things, but he was not interested in reading, and I got a little bit anxious, and the teacher said, he's not ready. And you know what? We came back to school a year later, and one of the teachers just sat down with him every morning for, 10 or 15 minutes, and they read together, and he was reading like a champ by October. I mean, it was just not a big deal, but it was a big deal for me at first.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's a basic skill you need.
Well, there was no criticism. They just said, he doesn't seem to be ready to read. And I'm going, what? He has to be able to read.
Yeah.
No, I felt very blessed that we were in that kind of a school system. I was afraid that if it had been a more traditional classroom, he would have been labeled and we would have had some problems all along.
You know, it's really true when you say just even that being with youth in the business environment. When we first got back to this country, I mean, I was barely 21. I was 19, actually. Yeah, 19. And we went from, doing magazine work with Nancy to I just immediately went out and got a job. Everyone knows that story of ours, coming to America with very little money and losing everything, in Africa. So it's like a whole different thing. Getting over, and it was not any fault of ours about losing anything. That was a political thing where we couldn't get our stuff out or our money out really out of South Africa at that point. When we got over here, it was like starting completely over, and we had I had three different jobs, and Nancy was doing the musical organ thing, and I was working in fast food, and almost got fired because I was not able to make change that fast, and my accent was thick, and they're like, she's not getting it, and everybody's accents were different, and it just took me, and even just a complete career change, to now be working fast food and have to stand on be on a microphone and go, hey, blah 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 blah, so and so, take your order. That was a problem, and so it's kind of interesting, that whole issue where I almost got fired, and then the next job, it took me too long, and it was in sales, and they were like, it's taking her too long, and I almost got myself booted out when all of a sudden one day everything came together and I kicked butt, and ever since then, like, they couldn't hold me back, man. I was off and running. I was like one of their top employees. And so it just is like, sometimes it takes people time, or you're not assimilating the information the way people are giving it to you. And it it's maybe not their fault or my fault in that situation. It's a completely cultural difference. I mean, it really was. I mean, there was like a big change of how American culture, it just was different. And there was anyway, so everybody does assimilate differently. And that is in a new environment. If someone's on a volunteer board or a professional board, it can take time to understand what the whole nonprofit is about or something. So sometimes people just take time according to who they are and what they're doing, how new something is. And something new is not necessarily, you got to give people a chance to get their feet wet. And I think good leaders do, Well,
I think leaders, in this case, a leader is someone who's very, open to lots of questions and listen to the questions that are being asked, rather than just saying, well, just do it this way, it's easier.
Yeah, exactly. A leader is supposed to be someone who leads you. So if you're a Boy Scout, your troop leader leads you through the forest, because that's what a leader does. They lead. Yeah, that's the idea of leading is, I'm going to be the one who forges ahead, and you belong behind here. You follow me. Not I'm going to be a big mean weenie and push you.
That's interesting, because there's also the whole concept of servant leadership, which is where the leader looks at themselves as someone there to serve the people. So in the Boy Scouts, description that you just gave, the example you just gave, the leader isn't just going to go tromping off into the wilderness saying, follow me. The leader's going to say, okay, who likes to go first? And then you can go first, and then I'll be walking along with the rest of us, making sure everyone keeps up. And then after half an hour, now who else would like to lead? Who else wants to be in first? So that everybody gets a chance to kind of like, ooh, I was in charge for a while, or I was leading the pack. But the leader is actually serving all of the group and running out in front and saying, here, follow me. That's not always the best place for the leader to be.
Exactly.
My opinion.
Because then how do people get stronger? You want your team to get stronger so that you can get stronger. It's like everyone grows together in that way. About being the servant part, can we change that? I don't like that word. I've never liked the word servant. Until it comes to public servants, and that's not happening. I won't go there. I'll behave. But
Not a girl.
Yeah, I'll behave. I will, because
you got to
really
serve
someone.
servants.
I just don't like. I know Bob Dylan said so.
Yep. Yeah.
What?
But you got to serve somebody.
Bob Dylan said you got to serve someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if it was called service leadership rather than servant leadership,
I'd be happy.
Yeah. Well, so it's interesting that you have an issue with that word. But anyway,
well, I lived in Africa where a bunch of people
everybody
had
servants.
Right, I understand.
Rang little bells for people to come running out.
To ring for the servants. Yes, I know. I know people who live that way. It makes my teeth itch a little bit.
Yeah. See, that's kind of where it comes from.
I have a woman that's starting to clean for me. I've switched cleaning ladies because of the coronavirus. And so this woman that comes in, she says, oh, I can make your bed and I'll clean out your icebox. And all these things. I said, whoa, okay, but it feels funny to have someone else make my bed. It feels like I'm, it makes me I don't mind someone, working with my linens. That's not my issue. It makes me feel like this person is my servant, and I don't like that. She said, I'm providing a service. You're paying me. These are the things I can do for you. And so I got a little less uncomfortable. But so I'm with you. I understand.
Yeah.
The reason that they call it servant leadership is because it stresses the importance here. I'm reading from their website. Stresses the importance of the role a leader plays as the steward of the resources of the group, and teaches leaders to serve others while achieving the goals set forth by the business or the organization. Does that make sense? And that's why they use the term servant. I think if you said service leadership, it meets the same criteria.
Yeah, I mean, it is this. I think it's just it's colonialism that I'm against.
Right, I'm with you. Yeah, I don't think anyone's disagreeing with you on that. So they have 10 principles of servant leadership, which are interestingly, they relate so closely to the principles of good relationships. There's listening, empathy, striving to understand, healing, awareness, persuasion, different from authoritarian boss, and persuasion meaning inviting people to be part of things. Conceptualization, that's thinking ahead. Foresight, stewardship, commitment to the growth of all, and building communities. So they're really very similar. Yeah, I do too.
Then they use one of my favorite words, which is stewardship. And that's, that especially being park people as we travel from park to park,
I was going to say, that's kind of your...
Yeah. You become steward of the land, steward of, protecting history, and steward of your community. Stewardship, that to me is leadership in a way. It's like protecting, but you're steward, so it's kind of like you're living in it. You're coexisting.
It's defined as the ethic that embodies the responsible planning and management of resources, be people or financial resources or, the forests and flora and fauna. I can't think of the words for all of that.
Yeah.
All the physical resources. But stewardship is nice, isn't it? It's nice to be a servant, for sure. Yeah.
I think I like stewardship. I think that is really a huge role of leadership. Stewardship and leadership is hand in hand.
It sounds protective.
Mm-hmm.
Stewardship sounds protective.
And a good leader is protective.
Well,
not crazy,
responsible
not
planning
weird.
and management. Just being responsible for it. Yeah, that's all.
Yes.
Yeah.
And caring. So in other words, you don't let your protective in that if you see that a fire is coming, you get your employees out.
Right.
You don't let somebody say, "Hey, I'm going to save the office building." You get them out. So that's what I mean about protective is caring. Protective of. Yeah, that kind of thing. And that's a good leader. And, that's a really good point is, Nancy and I have been through a lot of wildfires and, hurricanes and all that. And one thing you see is people becomes this, I'm going to stay here and defend my land. And sometimes it makes sense. And sometimes it really, really doesn't. Majority, 90%, it doesn't. You see people lose their lives over a building. All the time, and that's not necessarily being a good leader of your family. It's when that's not necessarily the way to go. So
no,
that's another part of leadership, and parents have to be leaders. Nancy's a good leader.
Yeah,
you go.
Really.
So
I think part of the challenge of our world today is like, how am I being a leader? It's like, my son is the director of education for one of the zoos in New York City. He's with the Prospect Park Zoo in Brooklyn. And so since, the middle of February, their staff, he did not have to lay anybody off, but they spent from the middle of February until the first week of July working together on Zoom. Everyone was working from home. On how to do virtual learning, how to have summer camp with a virtual program, and have it be experiential, and it was pretty exciting. And he said they spent just a lot of time talking and listening to each other. It was his staff, and then I think a couple of times a week he was then talking to the directors of education of the other 4 zoos in New York City. And so here I was thinking he was sort of sitting back and twiddling his thumbs. He was working hard all day, every day, basically. And I thought he's quite a personable young man, I will say, even though he is my son. He said he learned so much more about his colleagues, the people that worked for him, even though he did know them. He felt he had a good relationship with them, but because they're sitting in their kitchen or their dining room or wherever, and family members were around or pets, and yet they would be having serious pedagogical discussions, about education and the best way to do things, and then the technology of it. Although Zoom has been quite wonderful, they had a lot of work to do to be up and running for this. And I just got an email from the zoo thing today saying that I think the zoos are going to open in New York City in the middle of the month now. Wow. So you have to make reservations. But anyway, my point was there was someone who was being a leader, a virtual leader, if you will. He's working with all these people, but they weren't in the same room.
Well, and that's the thing. Leadership it's changed in how we paint the picture, right? Leadership is, and I think it's actually even more important now as we're a virtual society, because a lot of things are changing for schools. It's up and down. There are so many virtual events and people coming together as teams. Leaders aren't, it's not the same as being in the office or, that kind of thing. So leadership has changed 100% in the makeup, but it's still the same principles. And it's just doing it in a different model. That's really it. The model has changed, but the actual principles have not. Communication still has to happen. All of that has to still happen. And with all the different changes, it's really crucial to have good leadership now. Well, so many businesses have had to change. I mean, everything across the country, even everything has changed around the world. So leadership is crucial.
And the concept of allowing for differences, accepting differences, respecting differences, while ultimately having someone being responsible for example, wearing masks in a grocery store, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that people who run the store say this is the rule, and people who come into the store say we don't want to abide by your rule. Talk about trying to be a leader there,
Yeah.
That's kind of a tough. Someone has to do a lot of listening there.
Yeah. There's a lot of leadership because that's how you want to run your business, and you also have to be protective of your employees. So I think that's, going to that again. And so it is kind of like, hey, this is what we're doing. I mean, some places you go in, they're going to test your temperature before you go in to eat or something. So everybody's a little different, and it's like what the leadership has made, what decisions they've made, and then follow through on it. Once you've made a decision, you can't waffle back and forth 20 times.
Well, and you can't tell somebody else to wear a mask if you're not going to. You got to lead by example. So if you're not going to do what you say, then you're not going to be a leader for watch. So if you're,
it's interesting.
If you see somebody saying, well, you should do this, and that, but they're not, then you're obviously just going to okay, whatever.
There's a credibility problem there.
Yeah.
I remember hearing one of the experts in early March, talking about China, because China had been, under the gun December, January, February, and they said wherever you went in China, any hotel, restaurant, any of these places, you go to the movies, grocery store, you walk to the door, they took your temperature. Every institution. It's a whole different system of government. So, maybe they're just more easily able to just say this is the way it is. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that happened in India to a friend of ours. Everywhere she went, she managed to get home in the nick of time. She did actually get stuck over there, and then all the quarantine stuff. And India was far more ahead than our country with it. And they were testing everywhere you went, quarantining, all of that. And then she got back here, and everybody's in the airport together without masks, and they put everybody in the same room. And she's like, what are you doing? India knows what they're doing. You don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
it's
been interesting to see the approach, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
well,
it's
anyway,
definitely
people who are having to stay in or people in organizations who are being asked to be leaders in some way. Hopefully some of these ideas will be useful.
It's good stuff. And everybody, again, Sarah's article, Are You a Leader, is up on blendradioandtv.com. And keep up with her at Sarah-Elliston.com. And go get her book. That's important, too, because there's also self-leadership. That's really an important part of it. So it's called Lessons from a Difficult Person. Yes, Lessons from a Difficult Person, How to Deal with People Like Us. Again, Sarah-Elliston.com. You can get on Amazon, all those places. And we always like to play music, especially for Sarah, because she loves music. Are you getting my rowing music? I promised you rowing playlist. Every once in a while, I'm like, oh, there's another song for Sarah. Well, this one is written by Nikki Chris, and it's not a rowing song, but it's a superhero song. And I think about leadership, and it's about being a superhero. You're each person being a superhero, and Nikki is awesome. She stands up for everything that is good, and you can keep up with her at nikkichris.com. But this is Captain America, so take a listen and enjoy. And thank you all for joining us. You can keep up with Big Blend Radio. Just go to bigblendradio.com. We're on Facebook, all those places, Twitter, Instagram. And thank you so much, Sarah. We'll chat with you in the next month or so again.
Yes, have a good trip.
Oh, thank you. I know it. We're off traveling
Thank you so
once again. Here it is. Here it is, everyone. Captain America. Take care.
See the boy turn quickly into a man. Wants to do what's right, the best that he can.